Hi, welcome to one of our Natives cookery videos. This time we're going to be making beef bourguignon. To make this recipe you'll need some red wine, a little bit of flour, some shallots, some beef stock, some mushrooms, some beef, lardons, tomato puree, a little bit of butter, some onions and finally a little bit of garlic. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get a pan on the stove and in that I'm going to put some of our butter. The next thing we need to do is chop up our onion. We want it fairly fine, but it doesn't matter too much. It all adds to the texture of the finished dish. Then we chop up our garlic, and that can go in our pan with our butter. Also into our pan, we're going to put some lardons. We just want to give them a quick stir. While our lardons and onions are frying off, we're just going to quickly flour our beef. Just a nice light dusting. So there we go, all our beef is nicely floured. Our onions have softened up nicely and our lardons have gone slightly crispy in the pan. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take them out. I'm using a spoon with holes in so we can leave as much of the bacon fat and the butter in there as possible. The pan now goes back on the stove and into that I'm going to add a little bit more oil. Now it's time to fry off our beef. Depending on what size pan you've got, you may want to fry the beef off in batches. We just want to give it a nice brown texture on the outside. There we go, as you can see, our first lot of beef has got a nice golden colour on the outside. Just going to add that to the bowl with the lardons. So the rest of the beef has browned off nicely. It is starting to catch a little bit on the bottom of the pan, but don't worry too much about that. We'll get that when we put the liquid in later. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to add back into the pan the rest of the beef, the lardons and the onion. Now I'm going to add our stock. And now just add some red wine. Also to this I'm going to add our whole shallots. And next I'm just going to chop up some mushrooms to go in there as well. And with our mushrooms go into the pan as well. We just need to stir that up. I'm going to add a little bit more wine. Then I'm just going to quickly add a few teaspoons of tomato puree, a good amount of pepper and some salt. We're going to leave that on the stove now. We want to bring it to the boil and let it simmer for probably around about 2 hours until the beef is nice and tender and falls apart. Our beef bourguignon is almost done, so it's time to get everything else ready. I've got some water on the pan. I'm just going to pop in our cauliflower. That's going to take around about 7 minutes. To go with the beef, we're going to make some mashed potato. In this pan I've got some boiled, soft boiled Desiree potatoes, and to that I'm going to add some butter, a good amount of cream, into that a good amount of salt, a small amount of pepper, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to mash these up. I'm just going to add a little bit more cream, and a top tip from a chef friend of mine called Chip. He says the way to make your potatoes nice and fluffy is to stir it with a wooden spoon. So thanks to Chip we've got light fluffy potato. It's just time to put the broccoli in. While the vegetables are boiling, I'm just going to finish off the beef. It's a nice looking stew, and just to give it that golden edge when we serve it, I'm just going to add a final touch of butter. What this does is just brings a really nice gloss to the sauce. Okay, to place up, what we're going to do is we're going to make a cradle of fluffy mashed potato and ladle our beef bourguignon onto that, making sure that everyone gets a good bit of beef, a good bit of mushroom and a good bit of juice. And just to finish it off, we're going to add some fresh vegetables, some broccoli and a bit of cauliflower. And there we have it, beef bourguignon.